So we've got a few new people online today. It's the 16th of May 2015, and Peter's going to be, we'd like to keep a theme to these webinars. And Peter today is going to be talking about discipline and ensuring you stick to your strategy. Isn't that right, Peter?
Yes, it's sort of fundamental to the success of using this program, and it's something perhaps we need to highlight from time to time, because I suppose with anything that we do, there's got to be an element of discipline, and you've just got to there's got to be an element of patience with this. There's no doubt about it.
Actually, Peter, I was actually having a conversation with a long-term user of our program via email, and he asked me, "Oh, what do you think about this particular forex trading program?" And I said to him, "Look, I think that really it comes down to a person's ability to be disciplined and to apply the four pillars that we speak about. The time, ensuring you've got the right temperament, understanding and use of technology, and the right capital level, and that's financial strategy." So and he and I went back and forth, sort of agreeing with each other that really it's rarely the tool that makes the difference. It's the operator. I could have the greatest set of Sid Chrome tools in my shed, but nothing's ever going to be built because I am the least mechanical person ever. So it's not the tools. It's the education, which hopefully you appreciate what we do every 2 weeks, and of course all the videos that Peter does, and the effort that we go to. And also you apply those in a real world live situation. That's the conversation I was having with Des this week, and which dovetails perfectly into today's conversation. So look, Peter, my job today is just for anybody who's not been part of these webinars before, my job is to curate the questions. So that means just if you've got a question about a particular subject, go ahead and pop it in the question box. I'll be monitoring that. Peter, of course, will be just going through his process. And if there's anything in particular you'd like us to cover, or you've got a question, just pop it in the question box, and I'll interrupt Peter if I can't answer it directly. So without any further ado, I will... oh, by the way, just one quick thing. Can a couple of you or some of you go ahead and put in, yes, I can hear and see you in the question box, because it would be disappointing for the last 5 minutes worth of me rambling has been to an empty room.
It was a blank screen, just blackness.
Nothing, and no sound. That'd be just delightful. Oh, good. Everybody can hear me, it seems. Well, people are responding, so...
All right, great.
All right, good. All right, Peter, over to you, mate.
All right, thanks, Matt. All right, so today we're going to get very current. We're going to look at the selections from yesterday. That was Friday, of course, and we're going to run through these, and then we might sort of carry over and just have a look at some selections that were applicable to a Thursday a week or so back. So let's get underway now, and we'll look at this first race here, which is obviously not a trifecta race. So we go over to percentage return. Now, if ever you have an ideal, if there's ever an ideal selection scenario to start with, to get yourself started on any given day, and for any new people out there, new clients that are sort of anticipating starting to trade, I recommend that you ease yourself into trading by looking for percentage return races just like this one. Strong favourite, as you can see, holding much more than 25% of the money, and also it's at the top of the field with its own red separator. So that sort of confirms it sort of isolates itself in strength from the rest of the field, notwithstanding the strength of money for runner one. And of course, runner one has a separator, or the group of two runners, 9 and 1, have a separator defining them of 2, which is considerably bigger than the 1.7 minimum requirement. There's a very healthy percentage cumulative percentage held by these two runners, 53.82, which is, you know, more than half the money in this race is directed towards those two runners as a group. And of course that cumulative support is evident here, and as we can see, the strength of money is consistent over a series of intervals for these two runners. At 1 minute, obviously, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and so on. So if ever there's a great way for people to start trading on any given day, that's the kind of selection outcome that can get you away to a positive start, because these sorts of opportunities do have a very strong strike rate, and not surprisingly, because of the strength, very, you know, self-evident strength of money for the group in question. So everything lines up there. You can see that, you know, as I said, all the indicators are satisfied. We've got a return bigger than 50%. Away we go, and of course, not surprisingly, we start off with a, you know, winning result, and that's what you're looking for. So I guess if you're, you know, if you're easing yourself into trading in, you know, in the early stages of things, and a situation comes up like this, then they're the ones to jump all over. Okay, all right, now we move on to the next race. Now, here, if I just take this back to, say, a 2 minute interval, you can see that our selections for second would come down to there at this stage. You know, the money gap selections would be top three runners, down to runner 6 for second, and down to runner 10 for third, of course ruling the race out. We have a percentage held by the top three runners at this point of 66.35 to a 1.52 multiple. But as you can see, if you look here and here to a certain degree, there is a sort of a developing evident strength of money for those top three runners. So when we go to the 1 minute mark, that really manifests itself. You can see here, relatively speaking, the dominant money very definitely is for that group of three runners. You've now got a defining gap of 1.84, so it's increased substantially in size in response to that identification of strength of money for the top three. And on top of that, the percentage now has climbed up to 68.85. So quite valid and appropriate to make a percentage allowance for second place, simply because the money profile suggests that, and the indicators in response to that money profile also makes it qualify in terms of second place allowance. And of course, third would be bringing right down to number 7. And I think if you go to percentage return, there is a confirmation there. You can see quite clearly the separator identifying those three runners is considerably bigger than the money gap, its counterpart money gap. So there's a good example of where a percentage allowance would be quite appropriate to make. Of course, giving us 42 combinations. All right, we go to the next one. Another percentage return. Now here's another quite strong opportunity. You've got let's just go back here on unlock it so you can see it. This time we're dealing with a weak favourite, but of course because we need any trading group that we choose to be holding at least 47.5% of the cumulative money, we can't contemplate trading with 1 and 9 against 2, even though they're the two runners most money competitive with our favourite number 2. And so most definitely the trading group that's appropriate would be the top 3 runners. And that group of 3 runners identifies itself for the same reasons that the group of 2 runners identified itself 2 races ago. 51.75% of the money, a big separator, quite clear money dominance, cumulative money dominance here, strength of money here, here, here for those, that group of 3 runners. The return well and truly above the 50%. So there's another healthy trading opportunity that really should not be bypassed. So for anybody that's trying to be selective, these are the ones to single out. All right, now we move on to another percentage return. Same sort of reason. I mean, this time the percentage is just over the bare minimum. We're dealing with another very weak favourite, of course. I mean, you can see here these 3 runners together only, individually they're holding quite low percentages. So, but nevertheless, the percentage is above the 47.5 minimum. A sizable separator marking the group. Once again, clearly identifiable, strong cumulative support here, strength of support here, not so much here, but pretty much all the way along there has been a perceptible dominance of support and consistent support for those top 3 runners. So there's another trading opportunity, and with a group of 3.
So, Pete, if I could just interject, I can see a few people who have not been here for, not had the program or run the program for a while, and 1 or 2 newbies. Just to remind everybody that if you're covering a group of 3, a 1.5 gap is acceptable. If you're covering a group of 2, 1.7 gap is what's required.
Correct.
So just just to revisit I know it's the really basic stuff, and a lot of people, like I can see Merv here and a whole bunch of people who have had the program for a long time and make a lot of money out of the program. But still, it's nice to remind everybody that 1.5 if it's 3 horses, 1.7 if it's 2.
Yeah, that's if you're including the favourite in a group.
Indeed.
If you have 2 runners, say 2 runners against a favourite, against a weak favourite, and those 2 runners are very strongly supported, and your separator is 1.5 or bigger, that's acceptable, because it's not your trading group is not involving in the inclusion of the favourite. But when you include a favourite in a group of 2 runners, as Matthew said, the separator minimum needs to be 1.7. Any group that's bigger than that, inclusive of the favourite, you start at 1.5. Okay. Moving to the very next race. Once again, here we go. Now I've singled this one out because you can see that you could be, all the way along. There's sort of dominant money support here for these 2 runners. But of course, when we go to the final sort of assessment, we see that the percentage held by runners 15 and 1 is way below the minimum requirement of 47.5. So that means that, of course, even though the money support seems to lend itself to trading with the group of 2 runners, there is a major indicator that is missing, and therefore this is where the discipline kicks in, and we take the selections down further, and of course the race would be ruled out on the basis of a low return. So you don't fall into the trap of saying, thinking to yourself, oh well, the money's really strong, and and I've got and there's only one indicator that's sort of not right, so I'll blow it, I'll trade anyway, because believe it or not, in this instance, you would have picked up a winning outcome, but there's many opportunities that you would trade in, and you'd lack the application of the indicators and repent at your leisure. Well, repent in sorrow, I should say, because a large percentage of them would end up losing money. Okay. Moving to the next. Now here's a just a basic money gap selection outcome: 50, 70, 90 to red money gaps. As you can see, the money profile at 1 minute and also back at 2 minutes definitely confirms that those selections. I mean, those selections give us the optimal coverage of the prevailing money profile, and so it's important to have confidence in the selections that you make, and once you feel you've achieved that optimal coverage in this manner by reviewing all the indicators, well then trade confidently, because this one produced a winning outcome. And to people that or clients I've had over the years that have said to me, "Oh, I don't like trading with just 2 runners in a group. It's a bit of a worry." That's really that's not objective logical thinking. You've got to always, the objective with the selection making is to best accommodate the prevailing money profile in a race, and the basic money gap selections give us that outcome in this particular instance. And the final race that we'll look at will be this one. As you can see, it's a weak favourite, 24.883, so it is less than 25. This is an instance where trading against the weak favourite could be applicable, because firstly, the percentage held by that money competitive group, the group that's, and you can see quite clearly how in monetary terms in the cumulative column here that we have a group of 3 runners that's definitely money competitive with our favourite. Our favourite's weak, sitting second in the field, so it's conceded to number 1 in terms of money dominance of money support over the last 5 intervals. At the 1 minute mark, all 2 of our 3 runners are holding more money. These 2 here are attracting more money at 1 minute than the favourite is. The favourite's got a positive value in the UDIF column, no WUP numbers. Our group's holding more than 47.5% cumulative money, and so there's a valid trading opportunity to round things off. Okay, now we're going to go down and have a look at the outcome for yesterday, and you can see there that we started out with a couple of, or a win, and then there was a loss, and then we had sort of the run of percentage return opportunities that were clearly strong opportunities to choose, which brought us back into profitability. Now, around about this point, because you've had, and certainly if you had like a stop loss in place, you'd be monitoring things and thinking, okay, well, if I've got my stop loss value in place, am I within that stop loss value? Yes, I am, so I'm going to keep trading, and I'm going to be selective and trade confidently in races that I consider to be worthwhile. You've sort of fought back to this point here where you're back in profit again. Now, one more should really seal the issue for anybody that would be trading on this day, because it has been a little bit of a roller coaster. So once you get to a point where you've retrieved your situation, your profitable situation, I think that's the time to think about being disciplined and taking the profit that you've accumulated and not sort of possibly putting it in jeopardy by continuing on. All right, so they're the trading races for the 15th, was it? Yeah, 15th. Okay, so let's just go and have a look at this particular race now, or this day, which is a Thursday. Now, we were talking about patience earlier, and very often people will sort of indicate, and it is human nature, I quite understand. I mean, we can all be guilty of this in many areas of life. You start looking at the program and you think, okay, I'm going race to race to race, and you think, oh God, when am I ever going to get an opportunity to trade here? Now, don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh look, I'm getting so bored and it's just not happening, and oh well, blow it. You know, I'm going to create a trading opportunity. Look, there's only one guideline breach. Blow it. You know, who cares? You know, it'll be fine. I'll take the chance. Don't fall into that habit or that pitfall. It's far better to maintain a disciplined approach and say, okay, I'm going to review this day. This is what I'm doing. I'm reviewing this day until such time as I have a trading opportunity, and then we'll see where we go. But I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to apply the strategies in the appropriate way, and maintain that patience and discipline that's required. And so you'll see that it has its reward, because down at this reasonably late stage in the day, certainly wasn't a trading race in trifecta, but over in percentage return, here we go again. Two runners, strong favourite number 7. Those two runners holding 50% of the money. Big separator defining the group. Clearly defined money dominance cumulative here. Strength of money here, 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 all the way along. Ideal trading opportunity, and so that, even though it's late in the day, one that's well worthwhile getting involved with. We go to 2 races later. Now this is just a straight up 50, 70, 90 to red money gaps. No question. Top 2 runners first, down to runner 3 for second and third, 40 combinations. AR6, another percentage return, and this is another group of 3 runners this time. Strong favourite, even though the percentage, remember, even though the percentage is below 25%, the favourite is sitting at the top of the field with its own red separator, so that identifies it as a strong favourite. And you can see why. What does the red separator represent? Well, it represents the fact that at the 1 minute mark there's been a very large injection of money support for runner 3 relative to the runners beneath it. So even if these 2 runners were holding more than 47.5% of the money at this point, I think even based on the money support at the 1 minute mark, you'd be inclined to include that favourite. But under the new selection regime, you've got no option, because we need our group to be holding at least 47.5% of the money, which the top 3 runners gives us. And furthermore, notice our favourite has got a number in the WUP column, and it's also negative value in the UDIV. So no question, favourite goes in for a number of reasons. Group of 3 runners, profit okay, another trading opportunity. And the final trading race will be this one. And as you can see, top 3 runners for first and second, very clearly dominant in the money support here. Now, what we're going to do here is make the basic selections, of course, would come right to the bottom of the field like that. But based on the money profile at 1 minute, and indeed back at 2 minutes and 3 minutes, if you look here, it would be quite appropriate to consider making a percentage allowance for third like that, because the runners down to 4 are holding 89.51% of the money. You've got a very sizable money gap defining the group down to that level. The money just relatively drops off on the lower 4 runners. So all the full, the dominant concentration of money is has been consistently for those top 4 runners, giving us a small number of combinations, albeit, but 12. But it produces a winning outcome, because the winning trifecta here was 10, 8 and 2, and as you can see, 10, 8 and 2 produced the money. So once again, that confidence in selection making comes into play here, and honouring the objective to best accommodate the prevailing money profile in a race with the selections that we choose. And as you can see, quite the percentage return race was profitable. We had a loss on MR09. But the remaining 2 races that we selected as trading races produced quite reasonable profit. So it ended up being a very, very healthy and profitable and happy day for anybody that was prepared to stick to their guns, be disciplined, be patient, and wait for the opportunities to come. So that sort of covers those 2 days now, Matt. So any questions from anybody? Or
thanks, Pete. Yeah. No, look, I do. I think that that's a really good example of actually doing being disciplined about the whole thing. I've got Chris Roberts talking about a few other ideas. So look, go ahead.
It's probably something we could talk more about and reinforce a little bit more. I mean, you tend to sort of just take things for granted, but I think one of the key factors in being successful with this program is no doubt discipline is a key element, but patience also has got to play a fundamental role, no question.
Indeed. All right. Well, look, I don't have anything else to add. I mean, nobody's asking nobody's asking any pressing questions for us. So if there's nothing else, I'm pretty complete with what you've shown us today, Pete. Have you got anything else to add?
Oh, listen, I will. There's one more race that I can show because I mean it's been pretty short and sweet today. So we want to give everybody value for money, so as it were. I'll just go back here and go back to Friday, and there was a race up here earlier on, and this is more to reinforce the application of correct procedure than anything.
Yeah, one thing that people will see in these webinars is that, actually to stay on that race for 1 second, Pete, like that's a race that was a loss, but we do stick on these rules because we want you to apply the rules correctly, not hunt around and cherry pick and find winners. The idea is, we don't have any issues showing you those little graphs in these webinar sessions where you go, hey, we won and then we lost and we came back. If Peter finds a day where it's educational to show you a day that it's a loss, then we'll show it. It's actually, we don't need to sell you a program. You guys already bought one. What we do need to do is we need to sell you the importance of sticking with the rules and applying them in an effective manner. And that's what needs to occur. That's the sale we're making, is sticking with the rules that we've spent a lot of time developing and teaching.
Yes, and that's a very, very important point that you make, Matt. I mean, it's easy to be wise with the benefit of hindsight, and sometimes you can be forgiven for when you're looking at historical data and looking down at the results and going, oh yeah, well, yeah, would I have done this, or would I have added extra runners, or I mean, that's not the way to look at it. You've got to. I can't stress enough that you're going with the objective of best accommodating the prevailing money profile with the selections you make. You do that consistently. Yes, you will have losses along the way, but you're going to have many, many, many more, enjoy many, many, many more profitable days as a result.
And if anybody, I don't want to go over this subject too much, but if anybody is needing help, that's what we're here to do. If anybody is not, fills out a day of racing and a data sheet for themselves, they can send it to Peter and have it looked at. But also you can help yourself by going into the member section, going into race data sheets. We have every single day's trading uploaded there, going back to 3 years. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So, there's a lot of opportunity for you to really get involved and really, peel back the curtain of this program and learn more. Pete, what module is the WDIF, UDIF, and WUP explained in? What training module is that?
Well, that's mainly explained in the percentage return modules.
And which one? I think that's 5 or 6.
Yeah, lesson 5. But I might just do a little mini module that reinforces those very things. I haven't done one of those. That's something I will do. So that's okay. Good.
Because Patrick Elliott's just asking about that, and so Pete, do you want to quickly go over what the WDIF, UDIF, or WP columns are?
Yes, in a nutshell, without going into a whole lot of detail, I look at the WUP column. It's a very much a mathematically based column, and so the idea of the numbers is to try and identify the runners that are attracting significantly increased money support, as a result have significantly reduced win dividends, going from intervals to interval. As you may be aware, but I mean, the more money a runner attracts, the more favoured it becomes in the betting, the lower its win dividend. The less money a runner attracts, of course, the less favoured it is in the betting, and that runner will, of course, enjoy an increase in dividend size, because as far as the money support's concerned, it's less likely to win. So the numbers in the WUP column are just identifying runners that are what we call money movers at a certain time. But don't try to look at it in a literal kind of way or a mathematical kind of way and get all tied up in knots. Look at it from the point of view of being a relative column. Always give greater importance to the numbers featured for runners high up in the field rather than way down the bottom. It has no significance because it's proportionate, and so it's a grading system. So at any time you can see which runners are, attracting increased market support. And so if a runner, say, has a triple ones against it, it is the premium market mover. If it has triple twos, it's the second biggest market mover. Triple threes, third biggest, and so on. And so that it's not so important to have to be able to decide, oh, this runner must be very significant because it's got three numbers or 2 numbers or whatever. The idea is to use it figuratively and as a sort of a subsidiary supporting column. So if you look at the money support, and it's more important in percentage return. I should be really looking at percentage return, I guess. So here we have, as I said earlier, all the indicators suggest that, say, this group is the dominant money group. Cumulatively, not so much here, holding 69.86% of the money. And as you can see on top of that, one of the runners is showing a negative value in the UDIF column. So that tells us that it must have enjoyed some sort of increased money support over the last 5 intervals because its win dividend has dropped in value. And of course all 3 runners in that group have got numbers against them. So to some degree they are market movers. And so these 2 columns very much are sort of subsidiary supporting columns or columns that support what the money is telling us, cumulatively what the money is telling us, particularly at the 1 minute interval, and of course what the percentage column is telling us. And if you want to get a more detailed explanation of what is entailed in those 2 columns, I would refer you to lesson 5 in the training program, which is a series of modules dealing with percentage return.
Thanks for that, Pete. Obviously, us discussing some of the columns is shaking the tree of people's. They go, oh, what does this do? Brian's suggesting that we just review the R column. Look, that's one I can answer. I know you know it, Brian. You're probably playing a bit of helping us out with our to teach people the program. The R column in the middle there is simply showing us the movement of the horse there. So you can see horse 20 and horse 14, and what's happened is horse 20 has got a 1 in it, horse 14 has got a -1. That means they've just swapped over in position. So if you think about that, at one stage horse number 20 was lower than 14, and it's just swapped over, moving horse 14 down.
Yes, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
If you're selecting a dominant group based on the money support, and you've got, like one of your runners has moved up 2 positions and the other one's fallen 2 positions, really it doesn't, it's not really, it's superfluous to requirements because both runners are included in the group that we've covered.
Yep. And Matthew is asking, what's the difference between bookie bet and percent return? And really, bookie bet is something that was the original program was based on, which we would eliminate the first 2 horses and see how many horses we can cover for a win. Now that has not been a rule set we've used much at all in the last 7 or 8 years. Isn't that right, Pete?
No, that's right, Matt. I mean, percentage return is the revamped, upgraded version of bookie betting.
We just didn't remove it. We just didn't remove it because I don't like to remove features that somebody might be using. There might be some person who bought the program in 1999 who makes their living off doing bookie bets, and so we thought, well, it's not going to hurt anybody for it to be there. But percent return, for any new person out there, your priority is to look at trifectas and percent returns.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, if somebody like Brian uses the R column to advantage, well, that's great. That's terrific. But particularly in the early stages, there are a lot of things to consider, and so we want to try and refine it down to the key. The key identifiers that help determine the most appropriate selections. But certainly with experience, if you can use these other columns successfully and to benefit, well, that's the way to go.
Just one question, and I might need to refer to the programmers because when we designed this was a little while ago. The R column, is that referencing since the beginning of time, or is that the most recent update?
No, it's a bit of a nebulous one, Matt. I had a discussion with Chris about this, and we've come to realise that it can be a little bit confusing because if a change of position occurs at a given interval, that change of position and those horses remain stable in that position over several intervals, at a particular interval forthcoming, the program assumes that that's the position they've always been in, so it just goes back to zero.
Look, I'll because there'll be mathematics sitting behind that, so I will find out the exact answer to that, Pete, and come back to everybody probably in the Facebook user group, and I'll stick it in the forum as a question and answer, just because I want to know as well. I want to be sure. I thought it was from the beginning. Actually, I think if memory is served, I think it's a 5-minute loop. So if something happened 6 minutes ago, it's now it's now decided as status quo. But if it's recent, so because the program is basically, we're trying to base this around recent information. You know, we talk about win difference and UDIF and WP columns and those sort of things. It's all based around the last couple of updates. So let me just go ahead and have a conversation with the programmer, get the exact number, because we can't. Programming is about yeses or nos. It's ones or zeros. There's no middle ground in programming. And that's why when I say, oh look, it just feels this way, that's a really challenging conversation to have with me with the programmer. So we need to break it down into ones and zeros. I'll come back to everybody with an exact answer about if there is and I suspect it is, a 5-minute interval. I'll come back to you on that.
I think you're right, actually. It's a bit like, if I can draw an analogy, it's a bit like a stopwatch. You know, you start a stopwatch, and then you can stop it, and you can then reset it or zero it.
Yes.
And so that's effectively what's going on with this R column. So it is I think it might be a 5-minute loop from. I think that's what Chris and I worked out when we had a discussion about it. So you know, if you're looking at it from a long way back, it could be a little bit confusing. But anyway, I think that's a sensible move, Matt. And what we might do is create a little mini module dealing with the R column.
Perfect.
And you know, put it in once we've made that clarification. But the one thing I just wanted to point out here with this particular race is that at the 1-minute mark, you can see quite clearly that in basic terms, we have a possible megafecta, right? So $1.90 favourite, which is smack in the middle of the range, you know, $1.80 through to $2. You've got a very big money gap associated with the favourite, and if we look at here, we can see that the money support is pretty consistently strong, going right down to the 1-minute mark. Drops off a little bit here, but I mean over the course of the last 4 or 5 intervals, it's been consistent and dominant. Now, if we go to percentage return, you can see that the separator is bigger in size in percentage return than the counterpart money gap in trifecta, which indicates that pretty much what we're seeing here, that over the last 5 intervals, the money support has been dominant for that favourite. The percentage held by the favourite is sort of in the mid-range of between 40 and 50. So in terms of all the indicators evident in this race, megafecta would be quite an appropriate way to go. You know, the money support for the favourite is such that it would endorse trading megafecta as the preferred method. But of course, we've got to remember, if you're going to trade megafecta or bank a trifecta, you've got to be covering at least 80% of the money for second to a money gap. So it increases from 70 to 80. And of course that means that using this money gap as our defining position for second place would not be acceptable, because we're holding less than 80% of the money. So of course second and third would have to come right down, and of course we're all well and truly knowing that that's going to create way too many combinations, far more than the maximum requirement of 42, and so even though this would qualify as a possible megafecta in terms of the strength of money support for the favourite, of course it's ultimately ruled out because of the extent of coverage for second and third. But I mainly wanted to point that, show the race to highlight the complement of indicators that are the key indicators that in support of choosing megafecta. All right, so, and there is a little mini module dealing with this also available in the support portal. So that's pretty much it, Matt.
Felt like we'd run our race at 28 minutes past, but we've seemed to have been able to fill another 20 minutes of conversation, which is probably pretty unlike us, really. I find that hard to believe that we can find things to talk about for an extra 20 minutes.
Yes, as I think, Robbie Burns, the Scottish poet, said. Oh, sorry, not Robbie Burns. Rudyard Kipling. He said in his famous poem, "Fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run," and we've certainly done that, Matt.
Well, today's philosophy was brought to you by IQPro, and you know, never let it be said that we don't cover a range of disciplines here, from maths to philosophy. And look, I've got a few people here asking questions, and I'm answering them as we go. And you know, I think actually what I really love is seeing the people who have had the program for some time jump in and be as enthusiastic as the people who have had the program for, you know, a 1 month. You know, this is not TV. This is interaction. This is something that you guys can be part of, and this is your business. So, so the more effort and time and even just showing up to things like those the support groups, just being there, showing up is going to maybe add not any massive insights that are going to shake the world, but you know, maybe it's a 1%er or a 2%er, and you add up, you know, 2%ers over a year, and you're going to find yourself in a much more profitable situation. So that's why I'm sure that, you know, Brian and Chris and Merv show up to these things. It's not because they don't make any money. It's exactly the reason they do make money. They just want to get that percentage better. They want to up their game just a little bit. And so so that's really encouraging to see so many people here today. You know, Lynn, of course, and Malcolm. You know, so you know, these people are profitable because they show up. Not they're profitable, therefore they show up. You know, it's about doing the work. So I won't preach anymore. I think I probably should have left it with your philosophy or poetry there, Pete. So I'm going to say goodbye. Have you got anything else to add?
No, that's it's been an enjoyable exercise yet again, and I'd just like to wish everybody an enjoyable weekend, and we'll reconvene in a couple of weeks' time. So goodbye, everybody, and thanks for attending, and goodbye, Matt.
Perfect, thanks, mate. Oh, by the way, everybody, we do put updates in the closed Facebook group. If you're not part of it, email Linda or me, and we'll invite you. The forums are there. They're there for you. We're not going to entertain you by putting extra stuff in there. It's your job, not your job, but if you wanted to actually be part of it, then you should. Anyway, Pete's now restarting the program for today's racing. I hope you all are too. Talk to you later. Bye for now.
Bye now.